Good evening. I'd like to call the May 25th, 2022 Town Board meeting to order. Ms. Marco, please call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Present.
Mrs. Miller-Herrera?
Present.
Mr. Dotson?
Present.
Mr. Mastriani?
Present.
And Mrs. Collins?
Present.
5 present.
Quorum is present. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Miller-Herrera, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would everyone please stay standing? Our country has recently had 2 horrific shootings, one in Buffalo, New York, and another in Uvalde, Texas. And I ask that we have a moment of silence in honor of these 2 communities, and may they find the strength and support needed to restore their communities. We'll have a moment of silence. Thank you. Tonight we have 2 presentations. The first one is Ms. Barbara Olson. Would you please join me up front?
I made it.
If any of her family would like to join her, please come up.
Don't be shy.
You can come up and join her if you'd like. No?
You don't want to come up?
Yeah, they're coming.
Oh, they're coming,
Michelle?
Holly? This is yours. This is your celebration.
Yeah, but Holly is...
Yeah, shut up, man. Doesn't happen all the time. 50 years?
The next 50 should be even better.
So cute.
Yeah, come on.
That's adorable.
Hi there, how you doing?
Michelle. Whereas this citation is presented to Barbara Olson in recognition of her 50 years of distinguished service as a volunteer auxiliary member with the Shawnee Volunteer Fire Rescue Department. And whereas Barbara Olson's long and faithful service of President, Vice President, and Secretary throughout her 50 years to the town of Rotterdam as an active member of the Shawnee Volunteer Fire Rescue Department has been and continues to be an inspiration to other residents to serve. And whereas the benefits to the people of Rotterdam of protecting life and property over the years through the efforts of Barbara Olson must be considered as intangible because such quality of life is immeasurable. Now, therefore, I, Molly A. Collins, Supervisor of the Town of Rotterdam, on behalf of the Town Board, Town Administration, and grateful residents of Rotterdam, do hereby commemorate the occasion of Barbara Olson on her 50 years of faithful and untiring devotion to the needs of the community, with her citation as a symbol of our gratitude for her services and the unselfish manner in which they were performed. Thank you. Oh, okay. Pick up there with all of these. Absolutely. Molly, you gotta get the picture. Wow. I was sneaking out so nice. I almost made it to the door.
Come on, Molly.
There we go. Everybody look here, smile.
Oh, wait.
Wait. Because I'm not the best with, Megan can pick out the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
You can pick out the best.
That's it, right? That's it. Short and sweet. Now we can go home.
Probably did it bigger.
I know.
don't know, go today or go, or what is
We're gonna take a little while.
She's debating. Debating whether she should stay or go.
We also have another presentation tonight. I'd like Chief Brown, Deputy Chief Mail, and all the officers who are attending tonight to come up. I don't know if everybody knows that May is the month of recognition to our police officers. Give you a sneak peek. Whereas in 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed a proclamation which designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which the date falls as Police Week. So we may recognize the hard work and dedication of the many men and women police officers who have chosen a profession that reflects the highest degree of honor, strength, respect, and distinction. And whereas these courageous individuals choose to wear the uniform and selflessly risk their lives in performance of their duties, serving their communities with tireless effort, knowing full well the dangers and challenges that encompass their days, as they protect and serve the public with pride and dignity. And whereas we honor today those men and women of such great valor who have chosen to take the oath to serve and protect by safeguarding life, liberty, and property. And whereas those who enhance the quality of life in our community and have shown a long and sustained commitment to the maintenance of high standards in their profession certainly have earned the recognition and applause of all the citizens of this great town. And whereas this occasion provides us as elected leaders an opportunity to pay solemn tribute to those officers who made the ultimate sacrifice. Now, therefore, I, Molly A. Collins, Supervisor of the Town of Rotterdam, on behalf of the Town Board, the Town Administration, and all our town residents, hereby commemorates the bravery and hard work of the Rotterdam Police Department with a proclamation from the Town of Rotterdam as a token of our great gratitude and appreciation for their sacrifice on our behalf. I want to thank you very much.
Let's hold it together. Excellent.
I guess like 4 or 5 you can decide. Oh my God, it's too much. You know what I need?
Congratulations.
They what?
But it worked.
Of the thing? Yeah. Or the chief. Hey, first, I want you guys to take a picture. Just like zoom in on the. I don't know, it's like a weight thing. I don't know what's going on here. Why is it weight? It's a glare. Oh, because of the glass? So where's the video? You decide. Try checking the national picture of it. Good. If it doesn't come out good, we'll have. Well, I'll just come back over. Thanks again. That's right.
Molly, you're a natural.
Yes,
All right, we're now going to move on to privilege of the floor. Anyone who wishes to speak can speak. I'll raise my hand when we get around the 3-minute mark, and we usually give everyone 4 minutes to speak, okay? Ms. Marco, is there anyone who signed up to speak?
Melvin Mintz.
Melvin.
Good evening. I have 3 things. I've got to remember this. One, I'm not looking for an answer now. Just I had brought up a while back about the parking lot and striping of the lot. And somewhere along the line over the next week or 2, I'd just like to know how we're progressing with that. I think it's important. I might seem minor, but it's not. It just shows that the board and the town is doing something in the town and pertaining to our facility here. The other thing is, it came across my desk. I heard about it once and I sort of forgot about it, but recently, about moving possibly into what used to be the shopping center or the mall. I'm obviously totally 1,000% against it. I don't know what the problems are here that would even consider wanting to move, but the costs involved in taking the taxpayers' money to spend on a move there, even if the government wanted to pay us, it's still taxpayers' money. Whatever level of government, it's always the taxpayers' money. And my feelings are that if there are problems here in the structure of something, ceilings or whatever, the cost would be a lot less to do and take care of. And there's ways to expand this building without losing parking space. And anytime you want to discuss it, I'll be happy to show you how it can be done. The most important thing is that we are very prudent in how we spend the money of the taxpayers of our town. And any money that we do get from the state or federal resources, that I have the confidence of this board, will spend it very wisely. I have to look at the third thing. No, the third thing is, I know in discussing with the supervisor at one time that we have some memorabilia, historical things stored away here in the building, and I wish if there were some volunteers that might come up within the town to help the supervisor or anyone on the board to go through some of the memorabilia and things that we might have down in the cellars of this building over the years that show the town and what has gone on over the years. I would like to see some of it put up on our walls within the building, labeled historical and the years, etc. And then possibly it could, in contacting the Senior Citizen Center here in the town of Rotterdam, to see if there's space or things that could be put on display permanently there. To have it in the cellar and it just piles up is ridiculous. And it would also show the people in the town of Rotterdam, when we come to the meetings, of things that went on in the past, historical, etc., etc., etc. So I'd like you to look at those three things, and I'd like to hear about this, who brought up the idea of moving, and what is it that, if you ever did move into a place like that, and you signed the lease, who knows 10 years from now, they could not keep us there, and then we'd be in a problem, because you don't know who buys the property and what they want to do with it 5, 10 years from now. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it, Mom. Is there anybody else that wants to speak tonight but didn't write, didn't sign in? Is there anybody on Zoom that wants to speak? Everything okay?
Okay.
And we're ending privilege of the floor. We're closing privilege of the floor, and we'll move on to our resolutions. Excuse me. Our first resolution is resolution number 176 of the year 2022. Clerk will read.
To amend resolution number 21.22.
Any discussion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Mr. Christou.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Dodson. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christou?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 177 of the year 2022. The clerk will read.
To appoint and reappoint various members of the Town of Rotterdam Emergency Medical Board.
Any discussion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Mastriani. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 178 of the year 2022, the clerk will read.
To authorize the supervisor to negotiate and execute an agreement with FCM Engineering PLLC.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Do I have a second? I'll second the motion. And on the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 179 of the year 2022, the clerk will read.
Appoint seasonal laborers for the Highway Department.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Christou. And on the question, clerk will read the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 180 of the year 2022. The clerk will read.
Appoint seasonal laborers for the Parks Department.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Mastriani. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Christou. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 181 of the year 2022, the clerk will read.
DCJS reimbursement for the 2021 summer employees at the Highway Department.
Is there any discussion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Dodson, second by Mr. Christou. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 182 of the year 2022, the clerk will read.
To accept a stormwater utility easement agreement.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Dodson. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 183 of the year 2022, the clerk will read.
To appoint Joel Miller as director of the Town of Rotterdam Jazz Band.
Any discussion? And do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by, I'm sorry, I didn't hear which. All right. Motion by Mr. Christou. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Mastriani. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 184 of the year 2022, clerk will read.
To appoint Jacob Labate and Gianna Monagano to the position of director for the Rotterdam Town Band.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Dodson. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 185 of the year 2022, the clerk will read.
This was tabled at the
Oh, I'm sorry,
agenda.
that's right. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Resolution 186 of the year 2022, the clerk will read.
To authorize the supervisor to negotiate and execute a settlement agreement and release in Harwood versus Town of Rotterdam.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Mastriani. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 187 of the year 2022, the clerk will read.
To accept town board meeting minutes from the May 11th, 2022 meeting.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Do I have a second? I'll second the motion. On the question, Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christou?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 188 of the year 2022, the clerk will read.
To authorize professional engineering services for a trunk sewer survey.
Any discussion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson. Do I have a
I'll
second?
second it.
Second by Mr. Christou. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christou?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution passes. That concludes our resolutions for tonight. We'll now move on to liaison reports. Do any board members on their liaison duties have anything to report?
Yes, I'd like to apologize to the public that the last Parks Advisory Committee meeting was not held, not rescheduled. The next meeting is Monday, June 6th at 5:30. We do welcome public's input, and again, apologize for last month's meeting not being held and rescheduled, but we will be meeting at 5:30 here on June 6th, and we welcome everybody's input, and we welcome everybody to come. Thank you.
Did any of the board?
Yep, I'd like to respond to the privilege of the floor, Melvin. Melvin, in light of what you had mentioned to us previously regarding striping of our parking lots, we do have other areas that needed done as well. So I think collectively we'd like to see what they are and then look at it as one project instead of, individual ones.
Okay.
Thank you.
This year,
Is there anything that any of the board members would like to say under miscellaneous?
Just a reminder, Madam Supervisor, that on tomorrow night's parade, and on Monday, May 30th at 2 p.m., we have the Memorial Day ceremony here at Town Hall.
Yes, that's great. And it's important. I think it's great that we're all getting together again for a parade. And of course, the service on Monday, we have to, honor those that served in the armed forces.
Could we reiterate the time for both of those?
Memorial Day parade starts at 6:30, and the service at Town Hall is at 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. Okay.
I'd also like to make it known that on June 8th, our next town board meeting, at the end of our normal business, at the end of the resolutions and everything, we will be having another informational meeting about water meters, the water operating and maintenance, everything that's going to show up on your June bill. So that'll be June 8th here at 7 o'clock after we finish privilege of the floor and the resolutions. We will have, I'd like to say, an open forum where every resident can get up and ask the questions that they want to know. We will have Doug Cole, who's one of the engineers that works on our water infrastructure, and we'll also have Justin Peterson here, who's our water treatment plant operator, and of course the board will be here. So it'll be another informational meeting that we'll be having June 8th here. And also, I'd like to thank the Elks. If you've noticed on your way here that part of Curry Road has those beautiful flags on our flagpole, really helping us celebrate Memorial Day. The Elks were the ones that graciously gave us the flags, and I'd like to thank our Parks Department. They were the gentlemen that put up the flags, so I think they both deserve a thanks from us for making our town look so festive.
Yes, thank you.
Is there anything else from any of the board members?
Madam Supervisor, I move to adjourn.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Dodson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Good night, everyone.